Some perspectives of the Savitri Upakhyana. The story of Savitri, narrated by Rishi Markandeya to Yudhishthir, appears as a minor episode or Upakhyana in 7 cantos of the Book of the Forest in the Mahabharata. The immediate purpose of the narration seems to be the alleviation of grief of the eldest of the Pandavas, afflicted as he was by the sad, helpless plight of his brothers, and more so by the plight of their common wife Draupadi. This virtuous daughter of Draupada, the king of Panchal Desh, was born in the purity of a sacrificial flame, and was radiant and beautiful like a damsel who had come from the city of the gods. Warrior princes and heroes from far and near lands were attracted by her bewitching charm, but among the suitors who had come to claim her hand, only Arjuna in his shining valor could win her. Noble as she was, she always remained chaste and faithful in her conduct. She was learned and intelligent. She observed the sacred vows. She respected the elders and the wise, and she was a lady of great determination. Fate had in many ways humiliated her in life, and its wretched ignominy she had to suffer almost without end. The cousins of the Pandavas were only instruments in that cruel working. Even after the 18-day war, all her 5 sons, one each from her 5 husbands, were treacherously butchered by Ashwathama. But she, by her sacrifices for the righteous cause, was going to prove for the Pandavas a savior and fortune bringer. Issues far deeper than battles and kingdoms were involved, in which human merits and misdemeanors were superficialities. In these, Draupadi was a player who had accepted her lot with the strength of will that is born of a flaming life instinct. Eventually, the overmastering agents of evil and falsehood were exterminated, and the rule of fair law established, though at a very high price. If she had emerged from the fire altar, as is said to be, it is in that the past had to be consumed, the old karmas of ages and all the sanskaras put to flame. The prince's suffering was therefore poignantly characteristic of the great upheavals that shake up a society on the eve of a coming era. In it, a new yug, a new world order was ushered in. Rishi Markandeya holds the same promise, perhaps even a more splendid promise, in the Savitri example he prefers to give to Yudhishthir. The princess of Madura, King Ashwapati's daughter, had suffered greatly for her husband's sake, and had won noble, satisfying boons, including the exceptional boon of Satyavan's life from Yama, the king father lord himself. Occult symbolically, the god became the sun-bright giver of immortality to the soul of man on the earth. The Rishi begins the narration with Ashwapati's worship of goddess Savitri for 18 years. He is issueless, and his concern is to beget children for the continuance of his ancestral line, engage in performance of the sacred dharma. Hence he decides to undertake his long and arduous tapasya. Every day 100,000 oblations he offers to Savitri, even while observing the strictest ritual vows during the entire period. The goddess is immensely pleased by his devotion to her and approaches the Father Creator Brahma to grant a son to him. But he is to get a gift of a radiant daughter, and he is told not to have any uneasy feeling in accepting what has been sanctioned. When a baby girl was born, she was appropriately named Savitri, given to him as she was by the goddess Savitri herself. In course of time, she enters into the youthful maidenhood, but because of her fiery splendor, no one approaches her and woos her to marry. The father suggests to the daughter, as he was custom in those days, to seek a husband of her own choice. Accompanied by the elderly counselors of the royal court, she sets out on the mission task. Savitri travels to distant lands in her unknown search and visits proud capital cities on the river banks and holy shrines and several penance groves of the kingly sages. She offers her prayers to the deities in pilgrim centers and gives away great charities to the learned and worthy ones as she moved in her quest from place to place. In the meanwhile, Sage Narad visits Ashwapati and, as they are engaged in conversation, returns Savitri to the palace. She pays her respects to the elders and, on being asked by her father, discloses that in the forest of the Shalwa country she met Satyavan, and it is in him that she had made her choice of a husband. But Narad, without a moment's pause, declares the choice of Savitri to be something accursed and hence blameworthy. When solicited, the sage describes the wonderful qualities of Satyavan and also tells that the only blemish in him is that he is destined to die 1 year after the marriage. Ashwapati suggests to his daughter to go on another quest, but she is firm in her resolve. She asserts that she has chosen him as her husband and that she would not choose again. Narad sees it Narad sees in it a fine luminous understanding and discernment, in conformity with the Dharma, and recommends the marriage. In fact, he blesses it and wishes it to pass off without any ill happening. Then, Ashwapati, following the age-old tradition, makes a formal proposal to Satyavan's father Dyumatsen, and the wedding of Savitri and Satyavan is solemnized in the presence of the rishis of the sacred forest. 1 year is about to end, and Savitri is greatly afflicted when only 4 days are left in the life of her husband. She decides to undertake an austere vow of standing for 3 days and 3 nights continuously at a given place without taking food. On arrival of that fated day, she worships the fire god and, after receiving the blessings from the elders, accompanies Satyavan to the wood where he has to go for his usual work. But while engaged in a cutting tree branch, he suddenly feels very tired and exhausted and begins to perspire profusely. Savitri takes him in her lap and recounts the coming of the moment foretold by Narad. Not too long thence, she sees standing there a bright god with blood-red eyes and with a noose in his hand. When Savitri asks as to who he is, he introduces himself to be Yama and tells her that as Satyavan's life here is expended, he has come to take away his soul. He then pulls out the soul forcibly from his body and, carrying it with him, starts moving in the southerly direction. Savitri follows him determinedly and offers high and truthful eulogies in the strength of eternal values. In the process, she receives several boons from him, including finally the release of Satyavan from the noose of death. On their return to the earth, they realize that the forest has already grown dark in the evening and that they must make haste to go back to the hermitage where the elders must be waiting for them with all the anxiety in their heart. Actually, Dyumatsen is very much disturbed and almost becomes unconsolable. But then the Brahmins and rishis of the holy forest assuage his fears and help him recover his composure by giving him comforting assurances. In a short while, Satyavan and Savitri arrive at the premises, and there is great jubilation. Sage Gautam, asserting Savitri to be the effulgence of the goddess herself, possessing the knowledge of all that happens in the divisions of space and time and beyond, requests her to tell the secret of their coming late, when it had grown so dark in the night. He knows that something unusual, something supernatural must have happened in the woods during the day. Savitri reveals to them Savitri reveals to them the several details, beginning with the prophecy of Narad about the death of Satyavan on that particular day, the purpose of her accompanying him when he went for the work. Yama's arrival and taking away his soul, and his granting her 5 boons, including a long life of 400 years for Satyavan to live with her, and their begetting a rich progeny. Markandeya concludes the narration by saying that in course of time all the boons got fulfilled. In a like manner, he assures Yudhishthir, Draupadi too will carry the Pandavas across the shore. Such in brief is the structural outline of the Savitri tale given to us by Vyasa, a short composition of 300 shloks, mostly in Anustubh meter, a creation belonging to the poet's early period. Compared with his own narrative using the Nala theme written in the morning of his genius, it is a maturer and nobler work, perfect and restrained in detail, with the glow of the same youth and grace over it. We already begin to see in it the poet of the Mahabharata proper with his austere and unornamented features, the verses lifted up by a robust and unerring intellect, and the substance carrying the quiet, compact strength of his style and diction. Whatever is there is most often poetically functional, holding to the dictum of manner shaped and formed by matter, but very rarely is this taken note of while re-narrating such a difficult author's work. Even departures are made at times in textual details that give quite an unvyasian picture, almost falsifying what the creator meant to convey. This bane of vernaculars is pretty frequently transferred to the English versions also. Severity of the classical Sanskrit language, further highlighted by the pale and marble Rishi's mountain poise, is conspicuous by his absence in these effusive renderings. These tend to forget or ignore that the packed density of Vyasa's thoughts is indeed the quintessential feature of his style and narrative. Bearing its full charge, the epic movement always courses with the unhampered speed and momentum, reluctant to linger in purely lyrical descriptions. He alone, says Sri Aurobindo, could paint the power of a woman's silent love, rejecting everything which went beyond this. There has been only one who could have given us a Savitri. The tale has in it already the dimensions of a masterpiece, carrying the vision of a bright Tapasvin who, though may appear seated far, is yet amidst us to impart the knowledge of the occult mysterious. The seer poet, with the impersonality of the Purush, yet participates dynamically in the actions of the world, remaining steadfast and unshaken by even heaviest of storms. The calm and sober manner of the original has to enter into any rendering if we are really to get the delight of this detached poetry. Its rus is not in the thickness of the honey, but in the unconcerned matter-of-fact flow of felicity bearing some luminous sweetness in its current. Let us take a few examples to see in contrast the difference between the art of a supreme aesthete of non-emotional grandeur and the easy facile way of retelling the Savitri tale by others.